Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our inaugural broadcast of No Limits. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth, along with my co-host tonight, Candy Ebling. And what do we have on store tonight, Candy?
Well, since it's our first show, we want to introduce our show. Our show is going to talk, like the title says, no limits. So you never know from week to week what topic we might be bringing on this show.
Yeah, and the whole idea with this broadcast here is to be able to come up with different subjects. Sometimes it could be a big sports guest. Sometimes it could be an out-of-town person from anywhere around the country. And I think that versatility is something that we definitely need at the WSAN network for sure. Right, Candy?
Yeah, the fact that you never know what host you're going to have, you never know what guests you're going to have, and you never know what the topic. I mean, the topic one week might be some sports figure, whether it be a former player or a former coach, or it could be a sports writer, or it could be a food critic, or it could be a theater review. You just never know. It could be a motivational speaker. That's the huge variety that we plan on having on this new broadcast.
Yeah, for all you people that wonder what's trending, whether it's through Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot, this will be the ideal platform to find those trending topics, introduce them to you. And I think the one thing that we're really looking forward to doing is being able to reach out on a national level. Here at the WSAN network, just to give you an overview of what we're doing right now, we have our signature sports show, The Sports Exchange. Then we have our South Florida Tribune podcast, which centers around the local Southern Florida area, mainly Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, and maybe into Martin County. And then we also have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, which is an exclusive baseball show with myself and David Levitt. The Real and the Rare by Xavier McKnight is a unique opportunity for a guy in the broadcast business who's young, developing his own platform, and he comes up with some great subjects. We do fantasy football with myself and Ryan Schoolroot, and of course Motorman and Root Dog, and now here we've got No Limits. So, again, there's a great variety on the network, Candy, and I think this is, in my opinion, the final piece of the puzzle that will really make us whole and complete. And I believe that the objective is very clear, and everybody that I've spoken about this idea today is really excited about what the potential possibilities are and the magnitude of growth that we're going to have at WSAN Network.
Well, and you can hear us. We're affiliated with Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, CastBox, Podcast Addict, Deezer, and Podchaser. So basically, any place you get your podcast, you can listen to us.
Yeah,
for any one of our shows.
Right, for any one of our shows. And again, that's the whole idea is that WSAN Network, we are affiliated with those particular distribution partners. And again, this is a show that we expect that will grow over the course of time as we work to build it.
Well, there's no limits on this show.
No limits is exactly right. But the whole idea is this, folks. We want to go out there and present something unique all the time. And again, differentiation and being industrious is the only way that you can see it in this particular business. And this is a show that I'm really looking forward to because we want to keep things diversified not only on the local level, but as well as on the national level.
Well, and we want to expand. I mean, I know we have numerous sports shows, which is great. A lot of people out there want to talk sports, but there's a lot of people out there that want to talk more than just sports. So we decided we wanted to develop a new show that we could expand on. We have our South Florida Tribune podcast, which is a great podcast, but it's for more local people that want to come on, and it limits, this new show has no limits, because people think, oh, it's South Florida Tribune, it's going to be either about something in South Florida or with a South Florida person-based broadcast. So this broadcast, No Limits, is just that. It has no limits. It could be someone helping us broadcast from LA or New York or Jacksonville or Wisconsin or Detroit or Seattle. You just never know who might be hosting with us.
Yeah, one of my instructors at Gold Coast told me today that as much as he loves listening to South Florida Tribune podcast, for him it has no appeal to anybody that's in Buffalo. And I can appreciate his point, and again, that's what the entire objective behind it is to make this something that everybody can definitely enjoy. And you know what? The sky is the limit. We worked very hard to build this thing. But we also want to mention that the South Florida Tribune itself, www.southfloridatribune.com, serves as our online publication. And we want to make sure that you explain to you what the South Florida Tribune does consist of, Candy.
Consists of all kinds of writers. We have affiliate writers, affiliate partners that send us their content, so it can be for anywhere from the Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars, to the Miami Marlins, to the Florida Panthers, to some local colleges. You know, for all you Gator fans out there, Gator Country, they send us their content. University of Florida, we have University of South Florida, we have Lynn University, we have Nova Southeastern, we have UAB even. And then from there we have a golf writer that sends us content. We have a lot of people that write us content as well. We have a motivational called from Lynn LaSalle, Me Monday. And we have other writers that write for us, some more frequently, some less frequently. But there's a lot of different content on there. We actually have the weather on there. We have news outlet from Reuters on there consistently. So there's a lot of different things you can get on there. There's galleries of pictures. So one of the things I do is I do take sports photography. So there's a lot of pictures on there that you can go and view in the gallery as well as the written word. And we have a theater review guy that obviously right now there's not a lot of theaters happening right now, but once he comes back up, he'll be back out reviewing theater as well. We have someone that writes reviews on some new music albums that come out. You never know what you're going to get when you look. So
yeah, some of the voices that you'll get familiar with as we continue with this broadcast are David Levin, who's one of my big, heavy-hitting writers based out of Jacksonville. He'll come on every now and then and provide some of his input. Another guy that I depend on is Rick Curdy, who certainly is pretty well versatile. He resides in Charlotte, North Carolina. My close colleague, George Eichhorn, who I've been in this business with for 40 years, will come on every so often. And those are some of the key people that we've had that have been involved with us from the very beginning that will now have the opportunity to expand their platform to get this particular show. And again, no limits. The sky's the limits. We'll use every single cliche, Candy. And let me tell you what, we won't be able to use them enough.
There's no limits on fun, so there should be no limits on this show.
Yeah, the only limits we will have is we will not bring on politics and religion. I think there's certain topics, Candy, that you don't talk about. Now, if it's a political idea which is related to sports, which is not crossing the edge, I might allow that. But we try to really frown upon that because it's certainly controversial, and we're trying to keep this a very generalized but clean broadcast.
And if we ever did one on religion, I would look at it from the standpoint it would be knowledge-based about providing information, but it's not, we're going to have a service on here or we're going to tell you what religion to be or anything like that. That's not what this broadcast is. This broadcast has no limits, but I guess it does in that regard.
Yeah, some of the points of interest, too, that we'll be talking about will be health. I know some people that are involved heavily with Medicare that I'll probably be getting involved with at some point. There'll be some guests on the program. There's a health and fitness type of component which everybody should be able to get something out of, whether you're looking to lose weight or through the way you eat or working out. We have a lot of those individuals in place. And I have another guy named Dan Gudima who will provide some ideas about startup businesses as well as a lot of other areas. And Dan is the guy that I met at a networking event up in West Palm Beach, and we struck a great relationship there. So, you know.
And I was thinking I might invite one of my friends on. He actually is in the Guinness Book of World Records for canoeing down the Mississippi River. So there's going to be all kinds of different surprises and guests. You never know who we're going to come up with.
Well, you know, one of the guys I grew up with in this business back in the 80s was a fellow that you actually, Candy, should be familiar with because he worked in your market in Milwaukee named Andy Lascano. Now, I believe Andy is out of Corpus Christi, Texas. I haven't been in touch with him for many, many years. But the lessons that Andy went ahead and taught me as I worked with Channel 7, which was called the NBC affiliate at that time, was Andy emphasized to me, Scott, you've got to be different and you've got to be creative. If you're different, then a lot of people will pay attention to you. So some of the philosophies that Andy taught me many, many years ago when I was in college, when I was like 20 years of age, still live strong with me here at the age of 57. So, you know, and that's where I think a lot of the genuineness of what we're going to try to do, to me, I think is going to be a large part of how we develop this broadcast.
Should be lots of fun. I'm glad I'm on board for the ride.
Yeah, me too. So, anyways, now that you've got pretty much our introduction, Candy, we're going to lead off with COVID-19 and pandemic. Where do you want to go with it, Candy?
That's a loaded topic. You know, who would have ever guessed in our lifetime we would be faced with a health pandemic that would literally stop all sports, and not just in the U.S., all over. It would close a lot of restaurants. It closed all indoor seated restaurants. They're only open for takeout or carryout. It hit our economy immensely. So people right now, don't go checking your retirement because you don't want to look at it. I'm just warning you. Things will rebound. We are starting to open up. It closed American beaches. It closed travel, the industry airline travel. It flooded some hospitals during some times. They were making they were taking tents and making makeshift spots to house beds for a while. Thankfully or hopefully, the worst of it is over and we are on the back end of it, but I don't think this is ever going to go completely away. I think it's going to be a flu, kind of like the flu. It just comes and goes in waves, and so I don't think it'll ever completely leave.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, now they've got to come up with a vaccine for the whole thing. And I can tell you where I'm affected by it is in two ways. My mother is terminally ill with COPD, and it makes it hard because for me, I would love to be with my mother at a key time, but we have to depend on FaceTime to go ahead and see her, which is good. And another area which is affected as well, my brother Lonnie Morganroth owns a restaurant chain called the Black Rock Bar and Grill, and he's got 17 restaurants right now that are struggling right now. And, you know, when you have 17 restaurants in a strip mall that are not paying their rents, then he's unfortunately expected to scramble. And yet he's still paying his employees. Can't say that way about a lot of businesses which are furloughing them, but to his credit, he's trying to keep the best attitude that he can. And one of the things that'll be good about this broadcast, too, is not only will we do a lot of things here in studio, and a lot of them will be live, but we'll be taking our act on the road a lot, too, and doing remote broadcasts. So we'll talk to the newsmakers and be able to do a lot of different things around the country.
That sounds pretty interesting. I mean, let's face it, this country's been kind of shut down for, a month and a half now, or almost 2 months since March.
Actually, yeah.
So the country as a whole is starting to open up, especially in some of the areas that weren't hit as hard. Some of the areas that were hit harder are slowly, and rightfully so, starting to open up. But life as we know it, I don't think will ever be quite the same.
No doubt about it, Candy. I mean, but the thing is that I learned from your family, and I've been forced to learn it as we've been able to work with Zoom calls. And I had no clue what one was, but boy, I've gotten a steady diet of it now, though.
Yeah, the only thing is you always have to make sure you're dressed appropriately and that your hair is combed. And let's face it, because you can't just wake up and go on a Zoom call.
No, I actually prefer the baseball hat, though, to be honest with you, because it's hard to come up with salons that can't work on you. So the baseball hat idea kind of works out well for me, and you know full well that I have enough of them, don't I?
Yes. Some would probably say too many.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Too many. Got to have a hat for an occasion, right? At one of my former stops, they used to have something called the hat of the day. So, I don't know whether that'll be something we do as well. There might be instances where we decide to do things on Facebook Live. I don't know yet. That's something that we'll determine. But the idea of being able to do remote broadcasts on the road, I think, is a very exciting possibility. Because, again, our goal here is to create that national presence, and we definitely have the vehicle to do it.
Yeah, we do. It'll be interesting once. I know most sports haven't started back up. They are talking about how to start all the sports back up. I know, NASCAR started this weekend. No fans in the stands, though. And, of course, social distancing, the new word that everybody's talking about, social distancing, 6 feet apart from everybody. A lot of people facial masks, some people wearing gloves. They're talking about bringing baseball back, doing spring training over, doing half a season. Basketball hasn't quite figured out exactly when they're starting again. Hockey hasn't.
But UFC actually got the ball rolling, UFC 249, and that occurred out in Jacksonville, Florida.
Right. Again, no fans in the stands, though. So, it's just interesting because I've never in my lifetime would I have thought something would halt everything like it did. I mean, it even postponed some elections, and a lot of people did mail-in votes instead. They sent out stimulus checks. There's a lot. I mean, the unemployment rate skyrocketed, and I mean skyrocketed, with all the people that are out of work. They shut down salons, they shut down fitness centers and gyms, and nobody was allowed in and out of nursing homes or retirement villages. Was the threat for the elderly was hit harder, and they're more susceptible to the symptoms, so they tried to keep them very safe. It's just crazy.
Well, again, as your sister Marie would say, these are unprecedented times.
That's true. That's true.
When we were out in Arizona, I remember, unfortunately, Marie, Todd, and PJ had to cut their trip short. I know that they weren't able to get the benefit of spring training, and your dad, and we had a timeshare. But luckily, you and I were smart. We got there a week earlier, and we got to spend the duration of our time there. But those are circumstances.
We didn't get to all the games, though, either, because they stopped at midweek. But at least we had taken in a couple.
Well, as a matter of fact, for the most part, we got 3 out of 4, and we ended up stopping by the final stadium. So.
But that was the one we were supposed to be with the family, which would have been kind of nice.
Yeah, I know, but the bottom line is that was the only one that we missed out on. But 3 out of 4 still isn't bad. I'm sure maybe one day, hopefully it'll happen when we can do it at a later date. But, things, again, the whole trip got turned upside down because people were worried about flying, and we were in disaster mode. And here in southern Florida, we're so accustomed to hurricanes anyhow. So, not to say that a hurricane is any different than this, but when it comes
it's way different.
No, but when it comes to preparing for adversity, we're definitely trained to do it because of the emergence of hurricanes.
True, but at least you have power with this. You still have electricity, you still have water, you're just hunkering down at home, that's all.
I don't know, I got to tell you, I hate to say this for all you restaurant owners, I'm not so sure how often I'll go to restaurants because I've been working on my continuing to be in the best shape I can. I've learned to adapt to eating home. Well, I'll still go out every now and then, but I've had to appreciate something that I was forced to deal with, and you create new habits because you're forced to make adjustments.
That's true.
And that's where we pretty much at. I remember when we first came back from Arizona, we were scrambling to get toilet paper, and that wasn't the easiest thing in the world either.
No, it's not. And I'll have to admit, when you know that toilet paper is in a short supply, you buy whatever brand you want. When you know it's in a big supply, you become brand specific. And I can tell you, I now know why.
I'm sure. Well, I mean, that's pretty much, yeah, so this particular pandemic has definitely seen everybody really change their attitudes. I know that it's affecting us in some ways where, automobiles, we can't get any automobiles for a while because you don't exactly know if the dealerships are open. So, again, every area is affected by it.
The dealerships are open. The question is how comfortable do you feel going to the dealership, and how comfortable do you feel, I don't know about you, but trying to decide on the right vehicle, I like to try it on for size. I like to get in, drive it, and see how I feel.
Test drives, right.
How comfortable do you feel doing that? Do you think that they're sanitizing in between every customer and all of that? So it's just hard to know what they're doing and what you feel comfortable with.
No doubt about that.
It's hard. I mean, even the grocery stores, you're now, 5 years ago, if you would have told me that you could walk into a bank with a mask and gloves on and it would be perfectly okay and you weren't robbing the place, I would have told you were dead crazy. And yet, look what we're doing these days.
That's a pretty interesting point. Everybody that ever walked into a mask, it was never a good situation. You're always heard it in the news. Now a mask in there to avoid such a unprecedented pandemic is just too surreal, isn't it?
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah, so we're going to open everybody else up to a lot of different things. And, what we'd like you to do is listen, download, share the broadcast, and we'll promote them on Facebook, Twitter, as well as make announcements perhaps on LinkedIn and Instagram as time goes on.
And if you have any suggestions for No Limits, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Or if you are on any of our social medias and sites and you see that we've posted, you can always suggest a topic on our social media sites, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all South Florida Tribune, except Twitter is @TribuneSouth.
Very good, Candy. Very, very good. So, with that said, folks, this concludes our introductory broadcast of No Limits.
There is no limit. Remember that. No limits.
Yeah, and there's no limits to the amount of feedback that we look forward to getting from you folks. So, on behalf of Candy Ebling, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us here on our first edition of No Limits, and we look forward to making sure you become a consistent listener as we look to build this show like we have the other 6 here on the WSAN networks. So meanwhile, Candy, any closing thoughts?
Nope. Just have fun. Have fun with whatever you're doing, and remember to listen to No Limits.
This is Scott Morgan Ross saying good evening, everybody.